Islam Makhachev is the welterweight champion, and Arman Tsarukyan is very clearly the #1 contender at 155 pounds after his win at UFC Qatar over Dan Hooker. In this video, we're going to be matchmaking the welterweight and lightweight divisions after those two events, and I'll tell you what should be next in two of the most popular divisions in the UFC. If this is your first time seeing my channel, my name is Wyatt, and this is Fight Society. Let's get into it. All right, guys, so before we get into it, please do me a huge favor. Like this video, click that subscribe button down below, and click that hype button down below as well. It's right next to the comment section. It's a new feature from YouTube that helps push small creators even more than liking and subscribing. So thank you very much for that. Let's get into the video. First off, we have the new welterweight champion, Islam Makhachev, the former lightweight champion, most title defenses at 155 of all time, passing Khabib, arguably a top 5 fighter of all time. Some people say the GOAT of the sport as well. I'm not quite convinced on the GOAT talks for Islam yet, but he's definitely the #1 pound for pound fighter right now, and he took his rightful place in that position over Ilya Topuria following his UFC 322 win. Now, there's a lot of talk and there's a lot of options for his first title defense at 170 because we have Garry coming off of a win. We have Michael Morales coming off of a win. Carlos Prates had a big win. You even hear Islam talking about Kamaru Usman. The next fight to make, in my opinion, at 170 is Islam Makhachev versus Garry. This makes all the sense in the world to me. And I know some people are going to argue and say, well, what about, Carlos Prates had a KO and Michael Morales had a KO and Garry got a decision over Bilal. Personally, I think that Garry versus Islam Makhachev makes all the sense in the world. It's Khabib's protege and Islam versus Garry from Ireland. Not really a Conor McGregor protege, but trying to be the next Conor, if we're being real about it. Although I'm not the biggest Garry fan in the world, I don't think he's a very likable guy, especially after his little run-in with Hamza. It's kind of lame how Garry just walks around with a camera trying to like rage bait and get clips off of people, and then gets mad when somebody actually presses him. With that aside, resumes, it makes so much sense for Garry be the #1 contender at welterweight because you have Michael Morales, who beat a very old, aging Gilbert Burns, and then he beat Sean Brady, who got beat by Bilal. So even though he beat Leon, Leon got knocked out by Carlos Prates on the same card as them. So it's hard for me to put Michael Morales over yet. And we'll get to what his fight should be in a minute. Carlos Prates, I don't really think you can put him over Garry because Garry beat Carlos Prates on short notice. He also has wins over D-Rod, who's ranked. He beat MVP when MVP was in the welterweight rankings. He gave Shavkat his toughest test. And if Shavkat would not have been out for so long, I would say this should be Shavkat's fight, but he's been out for well over a year at this point. I mean, or at least by the time he returns, it's going to be over a year since his last fight. And I don't think you can just throw him into a title shot with how active the welterweight division has been. So as much as I dislike Garry, I think he's annoying as fuck. This is the fight to make. Ireland versus Dagestan 2. Garry showed that he can defend the takedown against Bilal. He's long, he's rangy. He could give Islam some real problems. And I think that you got to do Garry, Islam Makhachev. Do it before Ramadan, to be honest. Like, do it in March. When is Ramadan? Something like, it's like March or April, right? Do it in March. Like, try to do it before Ramadan. If not, do it immediately after like May or April. But Islam Makhachev versus Garry makes all the sense in the world. And that brings me to Ilya Topuria, because after UFC 322 and even before, so many people were calling for Islam Makhachev versus Ilya Topuria. And that's the fight that I wanted as well. But now seeing Islam Makhachev at 170 absolutely dominate Jack Della Maddalena, and how massive he is at 170, I seriously doubt we get Islam Makhachev back at 155 ever again. Literally ever again, I don't think it's going to happen. And Ilya, in my opinion, is way too small to go up to 170. When you consider he's like 5'6", Garry's in the same weight class at 6'3". So I really don't think that Ilya Topuria going up to 170 makes sense. And I don't think that Islam Makhachev coming back down makes a whole lot of sense. And aside from it making sense, he's just not going to want to go back down. His body's already felt that new weight class less of a weight cut, not being tortured as much, he's not going to want to go back down to 155. And as much as we'd love to see this fight, I think Ilya loses at 170. I think at 155, Topuria beats Islam by KO. I think at 170, Ilya gets dominated to a decision or subbed. Given what I just said about Topuria versus Makhachev likely not happening, we need a fight for Ilya at 155, and I think it's Arman Tsarukyan. He was out for 17 months, bitching and moaning for a title shot, but yesterday against Dan Hooker, he proved exactly why he's the #1 contender. He has yet to get a title shot. I know that he fumbled it against Islam Makhachev at UFC 311. He made weight as the backup at 317, and then he made weight here. Took no damage. Ilya's been out since June after taking no damage. I think you have to do Ilya versus Arman in Vegas for UFC 324 for the first numbered card on the Paramount deal. I think that Arman Tsarukyan, especially the way he got out of those guillotines yesterday, is going to be a huge test for Ilya Topuria, and it's just not going to be like a free title defense in Paddy Pimblett. So Arman Tsarukyan is the #1 contender at 155. He reasserted that yesterday. And as much of an annoying little bitch as Arman is, complaining about money, even though he drives a fucking Rolls Royce with his dad's money, Arman, Ilya, Vegas, UFC 324 main event, book it. On that same card, I think we need to do a #1 contenders fight of Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett. I don't think Justin Gaethje deserves a title shot after beating Fiziev in a second fight when he came in on short notice. I know he was supposed to fight Dan Hooker. He fought Fiziev on short notice after having already beaten him once. Paddy Pimblett magically floated from number 10 to number 5 in the rankings since he beat Michael Chandler in April. Neither of them deserve a title shot yet. Put them against each other. The winner fights the winner of Ilya and Arman. I think this makes perfect sense. Justin Gaethje needs to stop being a whiny little bitch and talking about retirement and saying that the Max Holloway loss doesn't count or anything like that. Because the fact of the matter is he got knocked out by Max Holloway at 155. And while he was not in the rankings at 155 at the time, Max Holloway has since moved up to 155 and defended the BMF belt against Dustin Poirier. So Gaethje needs another win. That fight against Holloway counts. As much as his fans and he don't want to admit to it, that's a fucking delusional take. He needs one more win before the belt. And Paddy definitely needs one more win before the belt. Justin Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett, make it the co-main event to Ilya versus Arman. I think that makes all the sense in the world. It would be a good test. Either Gaethje survives a very tough, surging prospect with really good grappling like Paddy Pimblett and gets a title shot. Arman or Ilya versus Gaethje is fun. And also Paddy versus Arman or Ilya is fun as well. That's why you book this fight, because if Paddy beats Gaethje, then we can actually admit that he deserves a title shot against Ilya. And Ilya versus Paddy, it's one of the biggest fights they can book. And right now, it would be a little too gimmicky. Like if they were to make this the first card of the Paramount deal, then it would seem like they're just throwing together the two biggest names for the sake of having big names at the top of the card. That's kind of it. Because if Paddy gets a win over Gaethje and Ilya gets a win over Arman, you have to book that fight. And Paddy versus Ilya is a fucking massive fight, like a real blockbuster type of fight. So I think you book these on the January card in Vegas. Gaethje and Paddy, Ilya and Arman. And we move on to the loser of the main event yesterday, Dan Hooker. He called out Renato Moicano, saying, "We both suck, run it." That makes perfect sense. Dan Hooker took damage, but not some crazy damage where he got knocked out. He got a little bit roughed up and submitted. Renato Moicano's been out since, I think, UFC 317. I think that was the card that he lost to Beneil Dariush on. They're both coming off of losses. They're both in that like 6 or 7 to 10 range. Make this a fight night main event next year. This seems perfect to me. Or you put it on the February card in Australia. The rumor, the February numbered card is going to be in Australia, and it's likely to be Volkanovski's retirement fight against Movsar or Lerone Murphy, but it is going to be Volk's retirement fight in all likelihood in front of his Australian crowd. Dan Hooker Moicano on that card makes all the sense in the world. You also have Tai Tuivasa has kind of spoiled the news that he's going to be returning on that card as well. 3 fights on the main card for you already right there. Maybe you throw Dricus du Plessis' return on there. Maybe you put Israel Adesanya's return on there. Something like that. And you have a blockbuster card as well. Volk in the main event. Adesanya versus DDP, or Adesanya versus Costa, or Adesanya versus Strickland. Something like that as the co-main event. And then you got Tai Tuivasa versus fill in the blank and Dan Hooker versus Moicano. That's 4 sick fights on the main card. And then, you know, they probably do the women's diversity hire fight that they always put on the pay-per-view main card. There it is. There's the main card for the February pay-per-view, or numbered card because pay-per-views are done. Moicano versus Dan Hooker. Very fun fight between two big personalities in the lightweight division. They would help promo that card a lot. So that's what I have for the lightweight division right now. Many people's number one contender who's just been out for a long time at 170, Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's going to get leapfrogged by Ian Garry. I'm very confident that they do Ian Garry and Islam Makhachev. And Islam Makhachev even said that Shavkat Rakhmonov doesn't deserve it because he's been out for so long. It makes sense, and I agree with him. So I think you do Shavkat versus Michael Morales, because Shavkat needs one more win to get in there for the belt. And Michael Morales, his resume is just not there yet. Sean Brady and Gilbert Burns, and I think Neil Magny before that, is not enough for a title shot. As impressive as he is, it's not it yet. It's not enough for a title shot. Then you take the winner of that fight, and the winner of that fight goes on to fight the winner of Ian Garry and Islam Makhachev. And especially if the winners of those fights are Islam and Shavkat, there is your Abu Dhabi pay-per-view main event in October of next year. You do Islam and Ian Garry, I don't know, March or May, something like that, either before or after Ramadan. You do Shavkat and Michael Morales as a fight night main event somewhere in the Middle East, or on the same card as Islam and Ian Garry. And if it's Shavkat and Islam winning those fights, you do them against each other for the October pay-per-view in Abu Dhabi. I think that makes perfect sense. Makhachev versus Rakhmonov, like that just sounds like an Abu Dhabi pay-per-view headliner. So Shavkat versus Michael Morales, I think they're both 19-0. So you have undefeated versus undefeated to get a title shot. That'd be a massive main event for a fight night. I mean, Qatar just got spoiled yesterday with their massive card. If they want to go back to the Middle East with another big card, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, or Qatar for a fight night, Shavkat versus Michael Morales makes a ton of sense. We move on to the former champion, got brutally KO'd and finished in the UFC 322 feature fight. Or no, it wasn't even the feature fight. It was just the second fight on the main card. He got KO'd by Carlos Prates. Leon Edwards needs an approachable fight. He's now lost 3 in a row. He got decisioned by Bilal dominantly, submitted by Sean Brady, and then knocked out viciously by Carlos Prates. I think the fight that makes a ton of sense is his old rival from back in the day. They never fought, Jorge Masvidal. He did a fighter Q&A before UFC 322. He said he wants to come back. He said he wants to fight on the White House card. You have American out of Miami, Jorge Masvidal against the English Leon Edwards. America versus England on the White House card. Makes a ton of sense to book that fight. There's already beef on it. You have the famous 3-piece in a soda line from Jorge Masvidal, and Leon needs an approachable fight. If you give Leon JDM, if you give Leon Michael Morales, Shavkat Rakhmonov, or even like a Joaquin Buckley, Leon might get fucking smoked again. Because the way that Leon fights is like he has to have everything go his way, or he just kind of gives up and things like that. Like the first round against Prates, real confident, he took his back. Second round gets KO'd. The Covington fight and the second Usman fight, or third Usman fight, sorry. The Covington fight and the third Usman fight, smooth sailing, didn't really have much to worry about. And then, of course, Bilal dominated him and he basically quit in the fight. Sean Brady, he had a terrible showing against. And then Prates was better, but he got KO'd badly on a big card. So Leon on a 3-fight losing streak against Jorge Masvidal coming out of retirement makes a ton of sense, all right? Put it on the White House main card. And it would help draw a lot of eyes to the White House card because Masvidal is a big name. Leon is a former champion. Also, if Conor McGregor is about to be the main event for the White House, Masvidal and McGregor have beefed a little bit as well, so it builds something up for the future there. Quick break. If you're loving this video and you want more from Fight Society, click that join button down below to become a channel member today, where you'll get access to members-only live streams, behind-the-scenes vlogs, and all the unfiltered stuff that we don't post to the main channel. Back to the video. Moving on to the loser of the co-main event in Qatar yesterday. Lost to Ian Garry by decision. Way closer fight than the judges had it. They had it 30-27. I thought it was a toss-up fight. It could have gone either way, especially given that Ian Garry should have gotten a point taken for eye pokes. He's got some beef with the former champion, Kamaru Usman. I think you run that fight. Kamaru Usman does not deserve a title shot. He's 1-3 in his last 4. His only win is Joaquin Buckley. And that's the only win. That Buckley fight is the only win that Usman has had since 2021 against Colby Covington. Because since then, knocked out by Leon, decision loss to Leon, was out for almost 2 years after that, if I'm not mistaken. Decision loss to Hamzat on short notice, and then the Buckley fight. He's had almost no activity in the last 3 years. He's had one fight in 3 years, one fight, two fights in 3.5 years, and only one of them he won, and it was against Joaquin Buckley. That doesn't really age well. So given the beef that Belal and Usman have with each other. Apparently, Belal showed up on their podcast and slapped Usman and made him cry. According to Belal, fight night main event, Usman versus Muhammad, or you do it on a pay-per-view main card next year. Usman does not deserve a title shot. Belal's lost 2 in a row. This is an approachable fight for both of them. So Belal versus Usman is what I have next. Carlos Prates got a win, viciously KOing former champ Leon Edwards at Madison Square Garden. Another star-making moment for Prates, and I see people calling for a title shot for him against Islam, but he lost to Ian Garry. You can't just leapfrog Ian Garry after you lost to him, and he has another win since then as well. I think you do Prates as a title eliminator, potentially earning a title shot if he wins this fight. Jack Della Maddalena, the former champion. Actually, there you go. Put that card in February on the Australia card if Jack Della Maddalena is not too injured. Jack Della, Carlos Prates, Volkan Movsar, Dan Hooker and Moicano, Tai Tuivasa versus fill in the blank. And then you got like an Adesanya return or something like that. That would be a huge, huge card to have in Australia. Prates fought Lee the Leech in Australia, so we already know that he's down to fly over there. Amazing striking matchup, a good fight for Carlos Prates to put himself in title contention, and a good fight for Jack Della Maddalena to go in there against a striker and not get wrestle fucked for 5 rounds like he did against Islam Makhachev. As long as he's not too injured, because there's been some speculation of a rib injury from UFC 322 for JDM. If he just wants to get right back on the horse, he's 29 years old. There is a big chance he gets back to the belt. He's only 29. He's going to be around for a while. And a win over Carlos Prates, who had a big win on that same card, is a step in the right direction. A win over Prates won't get JDM a title shot, but it'll get him a step closer. Get the Islam Makhachev loss out of your head, get a W, and fight a very exciting striking match with Carlos Prates, because you're not going to see JDM having to defend double legs like he did against Islam Makhachev if he fights Carlos Prates. So JDM versus Carlos Prates, book it. Take my money. That's such a good fight. We move on to a loser from UFC 322, Sean Brady. Took a big risk in fighting Michael Morales. A lot of people thought he had earned a title shot off of the win over Leon. But now, you know, that win over Leon doesn't look as good now that he's 0-3 in his last 3. And also given that Belal lost very convincingly to JDM and then lost to Ian Garry last night, Sean Brady's loss to Belal looks a lot worse too. So Sean Brady, he risked a potential title shot by fighting Morales, and it cost him. He got knocked out easy. They dropped him pretty far in the rankings. They dropped him from like 2 or 3 down to like 7 or 8 in the welterweight rankings. And so somebody that's also coming off of a loss in that same division, very close in the rankings to Brady, and also a very approachable matchup for Brady, especially considering how badly he lost in the wrestling department in his last fight. Joaquin Buckley just got wrestle fucked by Usman for 5 rounds in Atlanta, and I think that was in June or May, something like that. Sean Brady, I look at that fight and I go, oh, dude, Buckley's an easy win for me, especially considering the way that Kamaru Usman took him down, who's a lot older. I know he's an advanced wrestler, but he's a lot older, bad knees, coming off of losses. Buckley didn't know what to do. He was backing up on a straight line with his feet very close together, couldn't get up from the takedowns from Usman. If I'm Sean Brady, I'm looking at this fight almost the same as the Leon fight, where you just take him down, dominate him, and sub him. This is a fight night main event or a pay-per-view main card fight as well, and it gets one of them back in the right direction. The loser of this fight would be in dire straits in terms of getting up there for a title at some point in their career, but a very winnable fight for Brady that I think he would win. So Brady versus Buckley is what I want to see next. The loser of the co-main event at UFC 322 in dominant fashion lost to Valentina Shevchenko, Weili Zhang. She's going to go back down to 115 and fight the new champ, Mackenzie Dern. And I think she's going to smoke her, because watching Mackenzie Dern versus Verna Jandiroba, the entire time I was sitting there going, yeah, neither of these girls has shit for Weili. So Weili, go back to 115, go get your belt back. 125 is obviously not the division for you. 115 is. Go dominate Mackenzie Dern, get your belt back, and just keep cashing paychecks and running up your legacy there. All right, because 125 you're too small for. We move on to the winner of a main card fight from UFC Qatar yesterday, Kyoji Horiguchi. Amazing showing. Absolutely smoked Tagir Ulanbekov. Islam Makhachev said that Tagir Ulanbekov is going to move up to 135 and that they almost threw in the towel against Kyoji Horiguchi for Tagir Ulanbekov because he was getting his shit rocked. He was getting absolutely murked. Kyoji Horiguchi called out Pantoja. It's one of his teammates at American Top Team. He said, we're teammates, but I'll beat your ass. A fight is a fight. I think that makes all the sense in the world. I think Pantoja is going to run right through Josh Van next month at UFC 323. Van's just not experienced enough. Pantoja has so much high-level experience, and Pantoja needs a new challenge. He doesn't want to go up to 135. Merab doesn't want to change weight classes either. Kyoji Horiguchi versus Alessandro Pantoja. Make it a main event for a pay-per-view in Japan next year. They've been trying to break back into Japan for a while. Pantoja Horiguchi in Japan, put Tatsuro Taira on the card, put Kaya Sakura on the card. They would sell out any big stadium or arena in Japan. Horiguchi Pantoja, and it's a super high-level fight. I could see Horiguchi beating Pantoja. And if Pantoja just smokes Horiguchi, he's the GOAT of this division for sure. So Horiguchi Pantoja makes a ton of sense. Now, the very last one I want to talk about is Salsa Boy Waldo Cortez Acosta, who put on a great showing, absolutely nuked Shamil Gaziev yesterday on 2 days' notice. He flew out to Qatar on 2 days' notice, made weight, cutting 12 pounds in 2 hours to make weight, absolutely nukes Gaziev in front of the hometown crowd because Gaziev is from Bahrain, which is right next to Qatar. So basically a hometown fight for Gaziev. And you also have the fact that Waldo Cortez Acosta won like 3 weeks ago against Tom Aspinall's teammate Ante Della after getting poked in the eye. He's been poking fun at Tom Aspinall with the whole eye poke thing because Tom Aspinall stopped fighting, whereas he kept fighting against Tom's teammate and got the win. Waldo's setting himself up for a future fight with Tom Aspinall. If John Jones is not going to come back to fight the winner of Jones and Aspinall, and they need a #1 contender to fight the winner of Ciryl Gane versus Tom Aspinall, I think Waldo Cortez Acosta is your guy. But he hasn't really beat a top 5 guy, and he lost to Sergey Pavlovich. So I think what you do is you put him against Alexander Volkov, who just beat Jailton Almeida on the Aspinall Gane card. You do Waldo Cortez Acosta, Alexander Volkov on the same card as Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane. You got the press conference. Waldo Cortez Acosta is going to be talking shit to Tom Aspinall. Hopefully we bring out bully Tom Aspinall after all of this eye poke drama. Main card slot for Aspinall Gane. #1 contenders fight. Makes literally so much sense to me because the winner would get a fight against Tom or Ciryl Gane. So there is my fights to make following UFC 322/UFC Qatar as well. We got Makhachev, Ian Garry, topuria, tsarukyan, gaethje, paddy, pimblett, Dan Hooker versus Renato Moicano. We got Shavkat, Michael Morales, Leon versus Masvidal at the White House, Bilal and Usman, Prates JDM in Australia in February, Brady Buckley, Weili and Dern, Horiguchi versus Pantoja for a title fight in Japan, Waldo Cortez Acosta and Volkov on the same card as Tom Aspinall, Ciryl Gane. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'll see you next time. Do you want more from Fight Society? Like and subscribe below this video and click the join button to become a channel member today to get access to behind the scenes vlogs and members only live streams.